morning, everyone. Welcome to the Piedmont Unitarian Universalist Church. Piedmont's University Gathering sits on the traditional land of the Catawba, Kiowa, and Sugaree peoples. We honor them. My name is Robin Mara, and I'll be worship assistant today for our guest speaker, Sam Treadaway. We are a flourishing, vibrant, and radically welcoming congregation which promotes diversity, inclusion, and social justice. We provide a safe haven for creative intellectual growth, spiritual development, and a deep sense of community for all who join us. We hope our liberal religious values will challenge you to join us as a community that lives boldly and acts justly. To all our visitors and members, we're very glad you're here, in person or with us online. And we hope to see you again. Your presence is a gift to us. We have some announcements for this Sunday. Reverend Amy is currently on study leave until February 7th. So if you have any concerns during that time, please email joysandconcerns@puuc.org. And if you have other questions or concerns, you can contact our Board of Trustees at bot@puuc.org. In the meantime, we are pleased to welcome Sam Treadaway, one of our longtime members, as our speaker today, filling in for Reverend Amy. And for other important information about our vibrant community, please see your order of service, or if you're on our email list, please check your monthly announcements and monthly newsletter and weekly announcements. Whatever brought you to this place at this hour, we welcome you. May you find something you need, and may you leave richer in spirit than when you arrived.
Good morning. We routinely talk about being a warm and welcoming congregation. That takes on added meaning this morning. It was 15 at home when I woke up anyway. So thank goodness Jim has our HVAC system cranked up and running. The words worship and worth come from the same root word. In fact, worship in Old English was actually worthship. It literally means to raise up those things worthy of our attention and our reflection. And I welcome you, friends, as we enter into this time of worship. I love our symbol, the flaming chalice. It incorporates two core values of our Unitarian Universalism history. All are welcome to drink of the common cup of hospitality, and it provides light to pierce the darkness in a hurting world. With a radical welcome and with the warmth of our common flame, let's join together in singing the words for lighting our chalice. You may find those printed in your order of service. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we join in our call to worship. Welcome, friends, to this holy day.
We come to offer thanks. We come to sing and pray.
Welcome, friends, to this holy day.
We come to remember and celebrate those things worthy of praise.
Welcome, friends, to this holy day.
We come to pause, to breathe, to find the silence in a noisy world.
Welcome, friends, to this holy day.
We come seeking to address the needs of the head and the heart, the body and the soul.
Welcome, friends. Let us worship together on this most precious day. Please remain standing, and let's join in singing the most sung hymn in either of our hymnals. Number 123, Spirit of Life. You may be seated. And at this time, here they come. Here they come. It's time for our story for all ages. All right. While my able assistant is setting up us for success, however we define that, I wanted to tell you a short story, one that's near and dear to my heart. Many years ago, I was sitting on the back porch of our home with a good friend of mine who just happens to be a charter member of our church, John. And John was an excellent musician, and I was loved hearing him play and his friends play. And so we were on the back porch, and John said, "Sam, all you need to know are 3 notes, and you can do this too." And I'm thinking, I've heard you play, you're playing more than 3 notes. And he said, all you need is this note, and this note. And I had heard John play with his friends, and he said, I'm telling you, all you need is this note, and this note. And he said, all you do is you take those notes and you make some chords out of them. And he said, you mix all those together and you've got music, but what you really need to do to make it music is you have to include others. And so, we've included our friends here. We're going to play some music. And, we have extra instruments back here for friends of all ages.
Anybody know how to play the didgeridoo? This is my homemade made out of I've seen you do this before.
Kathy Cameron was in.
That's right.
What you do, I don't know on my own.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah. All right, everybody ready?
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'll start playing, but I want you guys to jump in, okay, and keep us. And of course, these are instruments as well, right? Okay, here we go. So this is the first tune using those 3 notes that John taught me. Boil the cabbage down. So big finish. So I share all that with you to let you know that we're going to be talking about sharing gifts with each other today. And I think sometimes it's good to be reminded that small gifts can lead to a big change, and that small acts of kindness, when supported by your friends, and maybe with a little bit of practice, can lead to big and better things. And so our Kind for All Ages comes to a close with that, and I invite you to sing our transitional song that's printed in your order of service.
Good job, guys.
All right,
This
thank you.
This bumps. This bumps. This bumps.
Jeff Foxworthy is famous for saying, you know you're a redneck when blah, 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 blah. You know you've been to a Unitarian service when a banjo, an udu, a djembe, a didgeridoo is followed by Johann Sebastian Bach. We now we enter into a special space and time where our burdens are halved and our joys are multiplied with the sense of community. In just a moment, I invite anyone in the room to make their way along the wall to your right, and feel free to fill out a prayer card that we will eventually be putting on our stand after it's reinstalled, or you may choose to light a candle or to drop a stone into the still water. Friends, we now enter into sacred space. take time to light some additional candles this morning for Jeff and Pam, who are negotiating some medical struggles, for Sue C. as well. We light a candle for a just peace in a very turbulent world. We light a candle for all those joys and concerns emanating from Salisbury this morning. For all of those joining us online, we light a candle. And we light one final candle for all those joys and concerns that aren't quite ready for flame or for voice. Now we transition into a time of quiet prayer and reflection. I invite you to make yourself comfortable as we follow the spoken word and then the bell into the shared stillness. Sit with me, for we will leave this place prepared to share our light, our hands, and our hearts. For we will leave this place looking for ways to bring the kingdom of God down to earth. For we will leave this place knowing that we are loved beyond measure. But for now, for this moment, just sit with me in the quiet, in the here, in the now. Please just sit with me.
Today's wisdom reading includes 3 selections. The first is the Gospel of James, chapter 2, verses 14 to 18. Dear siblings, what's the use of saying that you have faith if you aren't proving it by helping others? Will that kind of faith save anyone? If you have a friend who's in need of food and clothing, and you say to him, well, goodbye, and God bless you, stay warm and eat hearty, and then don't give him clothes or food, what good does that do? So you see, it isn't enough just to have faith. You must also do good to prove that you have it. Faith that doesn't show itself by good works is no faith at all. It is dead and useless. But someone may well argue, you say the way to God is by faith alone, plus nothing. Well, I say that good works are important too, for without good works, you can't prove whether you have faith or not. but anyone can see that I have faith by the way I act. Now, a quote from psychologist Carl Jung. You are what you do, not what you say you will do. And finally, the English proverb, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
The minister, let me get arranged here. The minister of my youth at Calvary Baptist Church, Preacher Yao, always started his sermons by saying it's good to be in the house of the Lord. And then he would always reach up, and he had one of those big old watches with the big metal clasp thing, and he would make a production of taking that off and looking at it and turning it upside down and putting it on the podium. You were on his time at that point, and so I guess he was a believer in giving you your money's worth. And he would always, there was always, of course, scripture, and the Bible would be up front, and it was evident. And as a young kid, I knew that when he closed the Bible, it was time to go into Just As I Am, all 18 verses, and then you hum it for 18 verses, and then Just the Musician for 18. So anyway, I always looked forward to the Bible closing because I knew we were at least in the home stretch at that point. So the title, What is Your Shibboleth? I don't know how many of you are familiar with that word, but it comes from the Hebrew Bible. And just for those of you that may not be aware, there's the New Testament and the Old Testament. And in the Old Testament, God played for keeps. He was all about rule following, and if you didn't follow the rules, you had he got retribution, tend to anyway. And then in the New Testament, love came into the picture. But the word shibboleth actually comes from the book of Judges. And I need to give you just a little bit of background so that we understand what I'm talking about anyway. Hopefully I'll know what I'm talking about. There was a tribe of Ephraim, and their leader, which was a tribe of Israel, that their leader, Jephthah, decided that they would invade and take over Gilead. And so they had to cross the river Jordan to enter into the area of Gilead. And they lost summarily when they invaded. The Gileadites defended their territory well. And so the Ephraimites tried to retreat. But the problem is they had to cross back over the river to get back home. And the Gileadites, when they realized that they had won, they knew they were going to try to get away. So they went to the places where you would ford the River Jordan, and they were trying to catch them. The problem is, how do we know the good guys from the bad guys? How do we know the Ephraimites from the Gileadites? And so there was a local town by the name of Shibboleth. And in the language of the Ephraimites, the SH sound did not exist. So as these folks were trying to cross the river, the soldiers for the Gileadites asked all those trying to cross the river to pronounce the town Shibboleth. If they said Sibboleth, they were summarily killed because they knew they were not Ephraimites, but they were Ephraimites. They were not the good guys, the Gileadites. So that's how the word Shibboleth came about. And the word has taken on meaning of any type of visible or auditory way of identifying who you are or what you are. Shibboleth. And so there were shibboleths that were used quite often in war because we were always looking for ways to determine who's the spy, who's the bad guy from the good guy. We humans tend to live in a binary world, good or bad. There's not much in between. And in fact, on D-Day, the night before D-Day, the paratroopers that flew in and parachuted in behind enemy lines, they needed a way in the dark to, gather. They had been scattered out from paratrooping in. And so they came up with a phrase that they would use if they met somebody in the dark that night before. You would say, "Flash." The correct response was thunder, and then the counter response was welcome. The reason that was used is that in the German language, as I'm told, the TH sound of thunder is not prevalent. And you may be aware that the W in German is what we would call V. So welcome would be welcome. And so that was a way of validating that the person that you were coming in contact with at night was a good guy, was an American. After the war, after D-Day, they were still always looking for ways of identifying who were the Allies and who were the Nazis. And so baseball became a question mark that was used to identify. If you didn't know who Babe Ruth was or whatever, that was a way of trying to sort and select who were the good guys from the bad guys. But the German spy, they realized some of these questions. A very common question too was, who is the girlfriend of Mickey Mouse? So what would happen is the spies went to school to study up on baseball and these kind of things, common cultural things. And so the Allies had to get more creative with how can we do this. So one of the common questions was, what is the fourth verse of the Star-Spangled Banner? I'll give you a moment. And what was counterproductive is that the Germans who had studied knew the fourth verse. The Americans didn't know the fourth verse, so it didn't work out. And then there was a very popular song that was released in by the way, it's At the Twilight's Last Gleaming. In case you're asked after the service. And then another common way of identifying spies that tried to get into the system, in fact, for assassination or to cut communication lines or whatever, was to ask, in 1943 there was a very popular novelty song, Mehr Sie Dotes. And if you're familiar with that song, one of the advantages of it was it's nonsense words. So it's not something that's easy to learn. And it also had words in it that were hard for Germans to pronounce. And so the first line is Mehr Sie Dotes and Dozy Dotes and Little Lambsy Divey. Yeah. And that was hard for the German spies to keep a handle on. On the Pacific side, a common shibboleth was Lollapuzzoola, because in Japanese, the L's and the R's, the liquid sounds, are rolled together. So if you said, would be Roropazuza, that would be a sign. And you say, well, that's in the past and all that. But I would argue that there's informal shibboleths today. Like I said, this is the shibboleth, the SH, and if you pronounced it this way, that told the Gileads that you were not one of us. Okay? So let me ask you this. How do you pronounce that? If you say Rama Road, you're not a native Charlottean, right? It's Rama Road. Rama Road. Whoops. Not Plaza. Plaza. Ray Road. There you go. Some of these, if you've lived here long, are so ubiquitous that it's like, what? Levine. Brookshire Freeway. For our Salisbury friends, Rowan. Rowan is a college. Rowan is a county. Fun fact, Rowan County used to extend to the Pacific Ocean. Literally. All right, for my Charlotte friends, Salisbury. There is no I in Salisbury. Just forget that I. For my local peeps, Cabarrus. Yeah, not Cabras. Concord. This is one that a lot of folks mess up on around home. Yes, Midland. Midland is in Texas. Midland, Texas, yeah. So it's Midland. Here's one for the folks in the lake area. Yeah. It's all slurred, right? Huntersville. Speaking of slurring, Cherville. All right. Risa and I are from a town in Union County that's named after President James Monroe. But it's not, the town is pronounced Monroe. And then also in Union County, Wingate, not Wingate. And then not Harry, but the town, Lancaster, not Lancaster. It's Lancaster. So my point is that there are shibboleths even today. We know locals from non-locals. If you've been in Charlotte long enough, for example, you know what I mean when I talk about the barrels on Independence Boulevard. If you know that. If you know where the Krispy Kreme was at the corner of Independence and Hawthorne, where you could actually turn on Hawthorne back then. Yes, that's right. You betcha, that's right. Probably one of those that's date-driven too is the JFG sign on Wilkinson Boulevard, if you can remember that. Or if you can remember skating at Eastland Mall, then you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of one of those threshold kind of things. I was talking to a young teacher the other day, and I said something about I've got a lot of plates spinning. They had no idea what I was talking about. They had never seen Ed Sullivan with the little plate spinning. And our son, who is an attorney, we were talking, and I used the term carbon copy. He had no idea where that term came from. He used it all day in his emails and all that, but he didn't, or his courtesy copy, they call it now. But he had no idea. He'd never seen carbon paper. Yeah. So my point is that we have formal or informal shibboleths. If you're familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous, you know that a common shibboleth there because of anonymity is to say that I'm a friend of Bill's. Bill Wilson was the one who kind of got Alcoholics Anonymous off the ground. So that is a way of telling folks that I'm one of the group without overtly saying I'm one of the group. Now, you may say, Sam, that's maybe interesting, but why are we here to talk about this today? I used that term shibboleth because in the early Christian church, there was a divide between actions and faith and works. Apostle Paul, who was probably the best salesman ever, is one that led us down a road of looking at Jesus instead of following Jesus, worshiping Jesus. And in his letter to the Galatians, the church, the Galatians, he says, "Know that a person is not justified by the works of the law, but by faith in Jesus Christ." So we too have put our faith in the Christ Jesus, that we may be justified by faith in our Christ and not by the works, because by the works no one will be justified. So this idea of faith and works from very early on became a divide. The writer Richard Rohr says, he writes that the driving mission of Apostle Paul was to demonstrate that Jesus was the Christ, the Messiah. That's why believers to this day are not called Jesuits, they're called Christians. Jesus can hold together one group or religion. Christ can hold together everything. So I mention all this because I think this has something that can inform us as Unitarian Universalists. We have core values, to be sure, but one of the things that brings many of us, including Sam, to the Unitarian Universalist tradition is that the burden is not someone telling me what to believe. I have to decide what is important to me. I have to decide my personal spirituality. As a result, our Shibboleth in some ways is our actions. As Unitarian Universalists, we have a strong tradition of social action, and our works is what define us in many ways. While we have core beliefs that we share, core beliefs like the inherent worth and dignity of all, the interconnectedness of all living things, and the principles of democracy. These things keep us together, but I think the thing that really identifies us as a Unitarian Universalist is our works. I live in rural Cabarrus County, and I vote at a school, not just down the road, and it's interesting as I'm standing in line waiting to vote, the conversations that I have, because as a white male, there are a lot of assumptions about how I'm voting. And my point is that our actions are probably a way that we can share our faith through actions. In fact, I would argue that if there is a litmus test for Unitarians, and we definitely do not want litmus test, but if there is one, it's show me your faith, don't tell me about your faith. Instead of being obsessed with the next kingdom, we are working to bring the kingdom of God here and now. What can we do to make a more just world? You've probably noticed the first 2 weeks, first two sermons of Reverend Amy was centered on love, which is the theme of January. She's talked a lot about love, and love is a noun, love is a verb. And I think Unitarian Universalists tend to lean toward the verb side of that word. We can talk about love, but how can we show our love? Last Sunday, if you recall, Reverend Amy talked about Martin Luther King Jr. as we went into that holiday weekend, or were in that holiday weekend. And as you know, what's another name for the Martin Luther King Jr. Day? It's a day of service. It's an extension of our love for each other and for everyone, whether we know them or not. And so I think it's through our service that we do that. I'd like to share with you an example. Risa and I moved my mom in years ago, and she was suffering with dementia. And when we moved her in, we realized pretty quickly that she was way beyond we could not responsibly take care of her. We needed help. So she moved into assisted living, and then she passed away almost a year ago. It was January 7th of 2023. And I was raised, as I mentioned earlier, in the Southern Baptist tradition, and so was all of my mom's family. My mom was the oldest of seven siblings. And so in some ways she was not only a sibling, she was almost like a second mother, especially to those that were, really the younger ones in the family. So this was a big change for the Plyler family. My mom was a Plyler. I called Reverend Amy, and she agreed to do the service, preside over the service for us. And I did so knowing that she came out of a tradition that understood where Mom's family would be during this time. She understood the Shibboleth to where she could talk to them in a way that made sense. Because these are people that believe that we are here by the grace of God, between the ground and God, and that 90+% of their core values are the same as ours. But she was able to put it and couch all that into a conversation where she honored a person she will never meet. But at the same time, she served a family that she'll probably never know. She understood that Shibboleth that transcends all understanding. She did an amazing job. Through our actions, through our love, through the sharing of 3 notes, we're able to show who we are. It's interesting how folks that I work with assume my faith tradition, because it's through our works that we share those things. The great theologian Oprah of Winfrey says that when people show you who they are, believe them. I think she stole that from Maya Angelou, but she claims it. That is true. In the book of James, 2nd chapter, verse 18, show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. Again, we have a strong tradition of doing what needs to be done, and I think that speaks volume. My family left that gravesite having never met a Unitarian Universalist, but through Amy's good work and her understanding that Shibboleth, she shared the core values that we all have. So, that other great theologian, Ted Lasso, says that we should be curious and not judgmental. And I am certainly not standing before you in judgment, but I am going to offer a UU altar call. What is your Shibboleth? Not our Shibboleth. What is your Shibboleth? I think most Unitarian Universalists, when they first join, especially if they come out of a faith tradition that's very dogmatic, very creedal, it's like, oh my gosh, this freedom. And then after a while they realize, wait a minute, that freedom brings responsibility. No one's going to tell me. I have to decide what's right and how I need to live out my spiritual life. So what is your Shibboleth? How do your actions reflect who you are and what you believe, what you value, what you cherish? No one can tell you that in this room. You have to decide for yourself. It's a freedom and a responsibility that we share as Unitarian Universalists. I started our service today by saying that worship means we pay attention to what is worthy. I ask as we leave today that you reflect upon your shared values, what you cherish, what is worthy, what is of worth, and how do my actions reflect that. So may it be.
Thank you, Anne. Every third Sunday of the month, we present a generosity moment, and it's a testimonial of sorts from one of our members sharing what Piedmont means to them and why they support our church. And today, Sam's playing multiple roles for us and is our featured generosity speaker, too. Sam?
So Amy asked me if I could do this, and this is by far the easiest part of presiding over a service because this place means so much to me. One of the things that I think is of value to me is that for many years we didn't have a church facility. So the church was the people. It moved around a lot, but it was the people. And even today, when I walk into this building, when I come on campus, I'm going to mention some names that some of you have never met, but they come to mind. Mark and Kathy Camerite. Jeff and Linda Blum. When I walk into this building, names like Neil Mara, Paula Renz, Jennifer Murdoch, Linda Christofferson, and Barbara Hollingsworth come to mind. When I think about entering the pulpit here, a sacred space for me, I think of Wyman Rousseau. By the way, fun fact, when we built this building, the pulpit was supposed to be back there. When I step to the podium, I think of Kyle Edwards, who made it with his own hands. When I think of our chalice, I think of Mike McCrae. When our time of sharing, I think of Robin Tanner. I don't know, it's been so long, it's easy to forget. Robin, everything used to happen in the middle. Robin's the one that wanted to create space for this, and for our choir and musicians. When we built this building, we could not afford the floor. We put it in ourselves. John Bloom led that initiative. Adult beverages were involved. When I look out at our patio, I think of Steve Pianowski. When I leave this space to go into our meeting room or meeting house, I think of Jim Craig, who built the deck. I think of Frank Martin, who was our president when we had to restore it after lightning struck. When I go into a kitchen, I think of Fred Watson, who installed the cabinets and counters. I see coffee in the back, and I think of Myrna and Mimi and Nancy and everyone else that's responsible for the hospitality here. When I hear the piano that Ann plays so lovely, I think of Margaret Edwards. Every Sunday when I leave, I see that Japanese maple and I think of Micah. And when I go to Salisbury, I think of Bob and Linda, Teresa, Eric, Mary, Beth, and Pam. Our building reminds me of our people, and our church is nothing less than our people. It's a special place for me. I hope it is for you. I hope it is for you.
Now let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. Sorry. Whoa. This month, we're sharing our offering plate with Common Cause North Carolina. Common Cause North Carolina is a nonpartisan grassroots organization dedicated to upholding the core values of American democracy. Common Cause works to create open, honest, and accountable government that serves the public interest, promotes equal rights, opportunity, and representation for all, and empowers all people to make their voices heard in the political process. We ask that you place your gift in the baskets as they make their way around the room, and you're always willing to give online. No, you're always welcome and willing to give online at puuc.org or by texting PUUC at the number 73256. Today's offering will now gratefully be received.
On behalf of a grateful church and an even greater community, our greater community, I thank you for your gifts, both tangible and intangible, your actions and your deeds. Our closing hymn, and it's not a typo, is the same as our opening hymn. But I want to tell you just a minute about Spirit of Life. It was written by Carolyn McDade, who came from was born and raised in rural Louisiana in the Southern Baptist tradition. And early on, she struggled to fit in as a kid, and she learned to play the piano, and that was like an escape for her, playing piano. She and her family, she quit playing music because she thought that was something that just only kids do. I don't know why she thought that, but she did. And in 1970, she had moved to Boston, and there was a special retreat at the church at Arlington Street UU Church. And the speaker, this is in 1970, was adamant that the retreat, one of the stipulations was that all of the words, including the music, had to be written by women. And so there was a relationship with Carolyn and the speaker, and so she began writing music. And she wrote this hymn, the one that I mentioned is the most popular hymn in either of our hymnals, in 1981. And when she returned to the piano bench and started writing music. She says this: singing does not automatically carry us there. When singers become the singing, however, some horizon, both inner and outer, opens, and we know, if only briefly, why we live. Such moments do not assure that our plans will succeed, but we know what is worth doing. Typically, Spirit of Life is played at a very slow measure. It's very contemplative and reflective, but we're going to end up on a more upbeat note. I've asked Ann to double the speed. So I invite you to rise as you're willing and able, and we will sing twice as long, but it'll take us the same time as if we had only sang it once, because we're going to be playing it in double speed. And I think you'll see that this prayer takes on a new meaning at this speed. So we come to the time when we traditionally raise up in voice those things that we're especially mindful and thankful for this morning. And so, please.
Reminding us of all those wonderful people that have been involved in this time.
Yes, all those who have gone on before and been a part of it.
That's what really has made this place.
Yes, thank you, Jeff.
I'm glad to know what Shibboleth means.
You're glad to know what Shibboleth means.
I'm thankful for 70 years of experience. Please celebrate with me with cake in the back.
Oh, happy birthday, Gio.
I
I'm thankful.
appreciate-
Oh, go ahead.
I appreciate the strong lay leaders in this church.
Yes, yes. Lay leadership, we have been so fortunate, yes, over the years.
I'm thankful that there were more kids than I remember.
Yes, yes, yes. For our children.
Heat.
Heat, yes. Heat, especially this morning.
Sunlight.
And sunlight, yes.
I appreciate you gave Sam the chance so we could get away from the school.
A respite from school board.
And I'm grateful, Sam.
Well, thank you, Paul. So Meister Eckhart says, if the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, it will be enough. So I lift up a prayer of gratitude for each and every one of you, for the church is the people. And as we circle up for our sung benediction, please know that you may choose to join hands or feel free to place your hand over your heart. As we circle up, I'll pause while we circle up. Yeah. So feel free to, I know it is the cootie season, so feel free to put your hand over your heart if you'd like. So hear now these words, these closing words. As we extinguish our chalice and as we leave this place, may our actions speak volumes, may our welcome be boundless, and may our caring be unceasing, so that our outward actions always reflect the love within. Amen.